There we go. Awesome. Awesome. So thanks for joining me on this call. We obviously did that previous call, and I know a lot of people got value from that. So I appreciate you doing this call with me on the owner victim, and that's what we're going to touch on today. So I appreciate that. I This is quite. I want to just quickly before if you're watching this on YouTube or whatever it is, even if you understand the owner versus victim mindset, I would I would encourage you to listen to this, because I'm going to give a few perspectives that maybe you weren't aware of, and I know Monica's got a few perspectives that maybe you weren't aware of. So, regardless if you know about this, I would still encourage you to listen to this because it could be helpful. I'm going to share a few things that most people are aware of, the Steve Chandler audio, and most people are exposed to it through that. But this is going to be a little bit different. And I know, Monica, you got a few things that you also have a different perspective, so it might be helpful. If you're listening to this and you've never heard this owner versus victim, pay attention to this, and this literally could change your life. And the reason why I say this is because when I got introduced to this principle, it literally changed my life to the point that when I start all my coaching with clients now, I focus on this first. Because if you don't quite understand this owner victim thing, we can't really build on creating the life that you want. You have to first understand you've also created all the drama that you currently have, or whatever you're experiencing. And once you understand that, then we can start creating whatever it is we want. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, thanks, Quentin. And thanks for inviting me again onto this. I thoroughly enjoyed the last one. And yes, a lot of people wrote in saying it was eye-opening. So thanks for
Yes.
having this as the subsequent um, video to that. And it is a very powerful concept, I think, the
Mm-hmm.
victim owner concepts. And when I first heard about this concept, I was like, yeah, I get it conceptually. But it wasn't exactly easy for me to move from
Mm-hmm.
victim to owner. Um, I also think that these are stages. They're not stages. They're states. So it's not like we move from infancy to teenagehood to adulthood and then to our old age. I feel like these are states. So we can be in victim consciousness for some
Yeah.
areas of our life, and then we can be in owner consciousness in other
Mm-hmm.
areas of our life, and we can keep switching depending on the context and what's happening at that point of time. And it's just important for us to know where we are, in which state we are, and why, like you said, we are creating those results that we are creating, and to reflect on, okay, how did I cause this? Was I in a victim consciousness, or was I owner
Mm-hmm.
consciousness? So I think from that point of view, it's very empowering. And when I started to realize how things were created differently through my thoughts, actions, behaviors when I was in these two different states, it was like a whole world opened up to me, and I was like, oh wow, I have so much of choice
Mm-hmm.
here. So yeah, so thank you again.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Monica. That you've touched on it there now. There's a few points that we want to sort of go through, and it's if you're watching this, it will help you get a better understanding. It'll give you insight into where you're being a victim, because that can be quite difficult in the beginning because you don't actually see it. Initially, that exactly what you touched on there now, Monica, is that I'm still working on that principle 18 months later or 2 years later. It's just at a different stage. You see it differently and stuff like that. So it doesn't actually really stop. But in the beginning, it can be very difficult to wrap your head around it. Yes, you might get it, like you said, from a logic perspective, like, oh, I got that. But from a conscious, subconscious perspective, it's completely different when you start setting in. So let me touch on the first point, which is what is your idea of what is an owner versus a victim?
So for me, I think the victim is, or the victim consciousness of that state is really about there are things happening to me. And so what that means is
Mhm.
there is something outside me. It can be a force of nature, it can be a person, it can be a thing or a circumstance that's happening to me, because of which I am going through this mood, this state of mind, this illness, this financial state,
Mhm.
this thing that I'm going through in my career. There's always something outside of me happening to me, and I look at it as a threat. And
Mhm.
so the locus of control is outside of me. And when I feel this way, or when I believe this, then there's a sense of powerlessness or helplessness within me. I really can't do anything for somebody else who's doing this to me. So the victim consciousness is a state of to me. The world is happening to me. And the owner consciousness is the world is happening by me. I become the creator of whatever is happening in my
Mhm.
life, whether it's a bad mood, or it's a bad financial state, or it's a bad health crisis, whatever it is, I had something to do with it, and I take responsibility for it. So really, the shift is radical responsibility. How did I
Mhm.
cause what's happening? What was my role in this? This could have been over the years. It could have been over the last few minutes. It could have been the last few hours. In any way, I want to be able to admit, honestly, at least to myself, that I caused this
Yes.
situation. So that's radical responsibility. And it's a huge shift. It's a huge shift in consciousness. It's a huge shift in the way I look at things. And it's a huge shift in the amount of power that I get from understanding that if I cause this, then I can change this because
Mhm.
I caused it. So there's a lot of benefit in assuming responsibility for what is happening. So that's for me the main difference between these two states.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for me, tying that in, I explain it to very similarly, but I so to simplify it, I always say that it's the owner. The owner believes they create the results that they have, whereas a victim believes that the world is happening to them. So I often will say this is that an owner believes that the world is happening for me. Everything's happening for me. It's not happening to me, which is a big difference. With a victim always believes that everything's happening to me. It's always outside of them. And I'll explain it also oftentimes with new people or new clients is that um, when you see it, is that you realize that, let's say this is where you're at the moment and you want to be here, is that you then have this realization is that all of this, yeah, you've created, like you said, at some level. Okay. And if you don't really get that, or you haven't got there yet, we can't start creating just yet, because um, once you have to first understand that you've created this, and once you get that, then it becomes quite fun in that, because then you start having that realization like, okay, and it can be a difficult pill to swallow in the beginning. I know I struggled with it, because I was like, no, my marriage didn't end because of me. It was her. Uh, my business didn't fail because it was the economy and all of these things. And it took a while for me to actually drop that and go, you know what, you made the shit here, basically. You created this by the decision. So it's not anything else. But the cool thing is, when you realize that, is then you can start realizing that, okay, I created this, but that means then I can create something else for myself, whatever that
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
that's what's cool about it. And that's why it's so important for you to understand this, because if you don't get this, you struggle to move forward from anything. And that's why I always start my coaching now with this principle, is even if we spend a few weeks just on this, because then they sort of build on that. So um, that leads me sort of to the next question, that normally comes up is, why do you think it's important to understand? We've obviously covered a little bit now already of that, but what's why do you think it's important to understand this victim versus owner thing? Why is it important? Why would somebody want to even listen to the rest of this audio? Like, what's the point of it? Like, what value would it be?
Well, the point or the value is really about, first of all, understanding that there are a lot of pros to staying in victim consciousness. Okay. So the reason why we stay in victim consciousness is because there's a lot of drama, and humans love drama. We pay to go to theaters to, watch drama,
Yep.
in good or bad drama. And so that's one. Secondly, is that we have human needs like wanting to belong to a community, wanting to feel loved and have attention, wanting to be approved of, wanting to have somebody say you did a really good job, approval. So I stay in victim consciousness in order to get all those things for me, right? So the more drama that
Yes.
plays out, the more chances of me getting that. This is really important for us to understand, because there is a more primitive part of our brain at play here, trying to get all those needs met through victim consciousness, and that's why we do this.
Okay.
And so, why is it important for us to know that we can also have a different state of being, which is the owner consciousness, or the world is happening for me or by me? Is because that's when I break out of the drama. That's when I break out of these patterns that have probably come to me through generations of conditioning, through culture or my family, and reliving the same thing over and over again. And I think this is linked back to our first video that we did, which is, okay, this is enough. Like, this can't go on. There has to be a different way. And that's when we step into the owner consciousness. So it's extremely from powerlessness to empowering. I can do something by just shifting my mindset a little bit, or looking at things differently, by taking responsibility and creating what I want. So I can be busting through a whole lot of limiting beliefs which have come through me through society, and that can be frightening. I can be telling myself that I'm bad mooding myself, nobody's causing this to me, and that can be frightening, strange, and like, no, there's nobody else to blame. Like you said, it's not easy, but it's extremely empowering in order for me to move forward. And that's when you see breakthroughs happening in life. So to answer your question in one sentence, because if I want to move to the next level of real breakthroughs in my career, in my relationships, in my personal life, it is very important that I understand these two states and I decide to move.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think for me, to sum it up, it's very similar to what you're saying is that if you want to create something new for yourself, you have to also understand and accept that you've created whatever it is you're experiencing now. You can't sort of create something new without taking responsibility of what you've created so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key thing there is it's empowering. That's why you want to understand this, because it's empowering. It allows you to create something new for yourself. So there's really there was two big points that I want to share also, which is how does, because this ties into the next question. So how does an owner behave, or how does a victim behave? And then let me share this. The next point would be is, what language does an owner use and what language does a victim use? Now, the reason why that's important is if you want to know whether you're being a victim or an owner, is just check language. And I see this with clients all the time. Obviously, my awareness is a lot higher now, so I can see it very quickly in the language and stuff, even in myself. I've had to change language and stuff, so I can see it. So the real important thing, if you aren't wondering to yourself, like, but am I being a victim? Maybe am I or am I not? Because sometimes it can be confusing. Always pay attention to the language. The language is the giveaway always when somebody's being a victim, the certain language, and we're going to touch on that now. So I'm going to sort of roll those questions in one, which is how does an owner behave, or how does a victim behave? And then tying into what language does an owner use, and what kind of language does a victim use? And I'm going to ask you to share, and Monica, and then I'm going to share a sort of a few telltale ones that I've got down that I'll just literally quickly share. And I may also post it at the bottom of this audio. If you're watching this on YouTube, at the bottom of this, I will give you those those identifiers. So Monica, for you, how does an owner behave, or owner and a victim? What's the difference? How do they typically behave?
Why is this always happening to me?
Sorry?
So why is this always happening to me?
Yeah.
Right? Why does this happen to
100%.
me all the time? Why? So I think victim language is very simply blame. There's a lot of blame, and why is this happening to me? And if I'm not saying it out loud, I'm thinking it or I'm feeling it. There's a sense of threat out there, and I'm responding to it, saying, why is this happening to me all the time? So that's victim language, very, very simply. And the blame can be both for somebody else, something else, or even myself. Why did I not do this? Or why could I have not been this? Or why did I not, whatever. So you're coulding yourself or somebody else. You have to understand that it's blaming yourself and other people. And I think ownership is really just how am I responsible for this? Oh, this is happening. Where was I responsible for this? So it's the behavior is in victimhood, it's reactivity. Immediately something happens, there's immediate reaction. In ownership, and I'm just trying to go back to my own evolution to see what is the difference when you say it. It's about, oh, this is happening again. And then instead of reacting, take a step back, you pause. And in that pause, like Viktor Frankl says, is our freedom. So it's like, oh, okay, this has happened to me and it's happening. How did I cause this? What was my role in this? And so that's the different language over here. What could I be assuming here? What could I be thinking here? How could I do things differently? What pattern or belief is playing out over here? So it's like I said, it's a huge shift in how I look at things, but the main thing is really that pause and ownership and responsibility.
Awesome. Yeah. And yeah, I think that sums it up very nicely. What I've created a few points in that. So if you are listening to this, it'll be posted at the bottom of this. I'm not going to go through all these points, but I'm just going to touch on one or two. For instance, on the owner, and you touched on it also, is owners typically take initiative. They take responsibility for their action. They have a positive attitude in general. They are proactive usually. They communicate effectively, and they seek out learning opportunities. I think is a big one. Owners typically always look at situations. What can I learn here? What can I learn here? They never look at it as a negative situation. So that's a big one. Victims, oftentimes they'll blame others. You already touched on that. That's a telltale sign of being a victim. It's everybody else around me that are assholes, but not me. It's everybody else, and we all do it at some level. I don't do it so much, but for sure, when you're not aware of it, you do it without even realizing you're doing it. They make excuses, right? Oh, well, it's not me, like I did with my stuff. Well, it's not me, it's my ex-wife. It's not the business, it's not me, it's the economy that folded or whatever. It's always something outside of you. They have a negative attitude usually. They are reactive, like you mentioned. People that are victims are very reactive. They're reacting constantly to things. They communicate ineffectively, and people that are victims oftentimes resist learning opportunities. Right? They almost avoid it a lot of times. The language, I think for me, the language, I'm going to just abbreviate it here because you touched on a lot of those, is an owner says things like, I can't. Owners say, I can, sorry. Instead of I can't, sorry. They say things like, I choose instead of I have to. right? They choose to do things. I will instead of I should. I appreciate instead of I complain. I can do instead of why me. You touched on that. Why me? Everything is why me. So I think those are the for an owner. Then on the victim side, it's almost the opposite. So it's basically what I shared there. They just tend to do the opposite, right? It's always I can't do this, or I have to do this is a big one, right? I have to do this, and this. So those are the big ones. I want to sort of, we've got about 4 minutes left, or 3 or 4 minutes left. So I want to ask you, there were certain things that you mentioned to me in WhatsApp before this. And I want to, in closing and just wrapping this, because it's a very big topic, we could probably spend 4 hours on a Google Meet and probably still not get through it, because it's such a broad thing, and it impacts so many areas of our lives. What's a final thing that you would share to somebody that's listening to this, whether they're unfamiliar with this concept or it's totally new to them and they're like, what the hell? What would be your sort of final thoughts?
So yeah, like you said, we can spend years working on this, let alone understanding the concept, because you can only understand it when you're actually taking the responsibility. But I think my final words would be that you don't have to give in or surrender to the okay, maybe not surrender. Surrender is the wrong word. I think maybe you can you don't have to give up or think that this is who I am as a personality. This is who I am. I can't change, because that's exactly what we're transcending here. We're transcending the old patterns, beliefs, the thoughts, the memories, and just saying that there is a different way here. Like you said, I can. And it's not just in terms of pushing your way through to complete a project or build a team or something like that. It's really about a change in personality. I can change this so-called personality. I'm not this personality that I was, that I've had and defined for myself, or others have defined for me. There is a different way. If I'm not seeing this way of living working for me, and I'm hitting wall after block after wall after block, then ownership is there, and I can reach out and grab it by just taking responsibility and saying I can change. It's a little uncomfortable, yes, but it's a totally cool, empowered, free way of living. So there is another way, is what I would say.
That's awesome, and I think if you can see exactly what Monica's saying now, it's a very deep principle. So if you're listening to this and you're like, what the hell are these people talking about? Just be patient with yourself, because I know it took me months to understand this. I was like, what the hell? So if you're listening to this, just go and listen to what we shared now. I'll add. I've actually created an audio, which is a audio based on a Steve Chandler audio that I listened to, and I sort of created my own version of that to listen to. So I'm going to post that link at the bottom. It's about a 14-minute sort of audio, and you can download it there. You don't have to send emails or anything. You can just download it directly. But that also give you more context. And yeah, just understand this is so important. This principle can literally change your life forever. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it changed mine forever. I can never see things the same again because of this understanding. Yeah, Monica, I really appreciate you doing this call with me. And it's awesome to have another coach's perspective. Just so you know, Monica's also a coach. So you got two, we see this in clients and stuff like that. So we see this all the time. So it's super valuable to have that perspective, and I appreciate that.
Thanks, Quintin. Thanks for having me here. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Awesome, Monica. Thanks.